What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strident, and I'm back with another review. This time I am finally starting what I've been talking about for so long with my journey into import figures. And we're starting with the SIC movie realization Kamen Rider the First, Ichigo and Nigo. These are pretty much movie figures. They come from Kamen Rider the First, as the title says. And these guys are a great example of what's lacking in the American action figure market. They're as almost as close to perfect as you can get. I have a couple small gripes, but let's get into this review. First off, looking at the sculpt, what SIC is all about is reimagining all, kind of well-known designs and kind of adding a realistic edge to it. It's a little bit of style, but it just looks more realistic. It kind of looks like what the movie version of a lot of comic book characters would look like. And in the case of these figures, they look like the three-dimensional interpretation of the manga version of these Kamen Riders, because Kamen Rider's a little bit darker than what it's kind of become, with riders having missiles and shit hanging off of them and stuff. It hasn't been that goofy. Especially when it started out, it was a lot darker because your heroes usually were abducted and then turned into cybernetic killing machines against their will. And then, the story is usually like a change of heart. Their humanity kind of it interrupts the mission that they've been programmed with, and then they choose to use their powers to protect as opposed to just destroy. So the designs and many of these characters are darker characters. So looking at the way they came out here, the cool thing is, in the film, they actually already look like this, because the film designs look like they just took their inspiration right from the SIC playbook. I just love this whole I love this style. It reminds me of the way I would have redesigned many of these characters. The SIC franchise is kind of known for their redesigns based on artworks and interpretations by Takayuki Takeya and my boy Kenji Ando. Kenji Ando I dig because his interpretation of thighs is fucking phenomenal. That's actually going to be one of the next reviews that I put up, so you guys will be able to see. Now, I'm not sure exactly which one of the two did these, but they have such similar styles that when they do traditional looking riders, you still get the same result. So, and the result is awesome. I mean, look at the paint. Look at the sculpt. Look at how many different types of paint you're seeing on there. The different types of finishes you're seeing on there. The simplicity of some of these things. Now, I know with long-term SIC collectors, they're kind of like, ugh, another version of Ichigo and Nigo. For me, this is where I'm starting. I mean, I really started with Stronger and Tackle, but this is where I'm like kind of reaffirming where I'm going to go with these, with collecting. So for me, it was perfect. Everything down to these compound eyes. I mean, it's showing you the artistic side of creating action figures as opposed to the corporate side of just churning out some bullshit that has, a fan base because it's based on pre-existing material. I mean, it's similar here. The writers all existed in comics beforehand, and now they've kind of transitioned into multiple different types of media over the last, several decades. And it's the same with Marvel, and DC. Why is it that Hasbro can't do some certain things and Bandai can? But anyway, you can see from all the detail, the hair coming out of the back of the helmet. You can see that there's 2 or 3 different colors going on in the helmet. The metallic color, there's like a dark, almost like a wash going on top of it for the lines. I mean, they're just showing you their mastery of the sculpted form, period, through the paint and through the sculpt. I mean, that's all we're asking for. And they're showing you how faithful they can be to the source material. Before I actually move on to the next picture, I'm going to show you a picture of what Ichigo looks like. Actually, I'll find a picture of both of them and I'll try and put that in there, and you'll see what they both look like in the film versus what we're looking at right here in action figure form. And it's what I always complain about when I'm looking at, you know, shit from Hasbro and shit from Mattel. When they do movie versions, they always slack, like you saw it with Feora. You shouldn't be slacking. This is when you bring your A game and you show us how much more you can do to make this thing look like it stepped right out of the movie and into my hand. I mean, look at how they added some details with the shape of that chest to make it look more insectoid-like, you know, to give it that exoskeletal feel, I'm sorry. Look at all the different textures that are going on in there. All they're doing is using different tools to make those textures on the same plastic. It's the difference between a good sculptor and a bad sculptor. Look at all the paint detail, those tiny little beads that they've painted the red in there, even in the little square on the front of the buckle, which I'll go back to in a little bit. All these little silver rivets and, you know, just no slop whatsoever. You know, and these things, I'm pretty sure, are not in production. I'm pretty sure this is an older figure. The film came out in 2005, and this set came out in 2006. So, yeah, these are older figures. I mean, look at the wings. They got a nice little texture to go up against the leather. The folds in the leather look natural. They paid attention to the freaking... the belt, the back of the belt, the weight belt buckle piece, you know, in the back. Look at the little shocker symbol that they got going on Nigo. I mean, and it's funny because they're the same sculpt with slightly different helmets and, you know, obviously different paint jobs. But they did enough on these characters, being that even in the story, that's the purpose. Nigo was created to take the place of Ichigo, who kind of he straight up defected. It's not even kinda. So you've got these similar types of guys, and, you know, one is kind of the imperfect version and one is the perfected version, you know. And all they did here was they made sure their paint jobs were different. They made sure there were subtle differences as far as the sculpting detail goes, so that you wouldn't just have a boring two-pack like the shit we get from Hasbro when it comes to G.I. Joes and a lot of the new G.I. Joes and a lot of Marvel Legends. This is what I'm talking about. This is getting to that perfect area, you know, when it comes to making the figure. I mean, their posability is really good too, which I'm going to go get into in more detail because I'm starting to separate. I figure I'm going to start separating my points. But when you have them assume poses that you've seen in the show, the figure really shines. It really comes to life. I mean, look at the wash on his chest. Look at the shiny finish on the red fan in his belt. You know, the single typhoon. It just looks great. I mean, it looks so much like what we know he looked like. It looks exactly like what we knew he looked like in the film, with an edge. And I like it. And the edge piece is subtle. It's not like they're going overboard. It's very subtle. See what I'm saying? The buckle in the back, because, you know, that's pretty much a modified weight belt. I'm not even going to pretend. They just flipped it and, you know, they added that fan on the front. But it works. I mean, you would think something this simple, they would be like, oh, it's the back of the figure. In America, that's what they do. It's the back of the figure. Don't even paint it. Just let it be black, you know? Not here. The buckle is even painted differently. The little beads on the ends are painted, you know, to stand out from the color of the belt. I mean, that's what I'm talking about when I say that I gave up on that other shit because we weren't getting this. I mean, you got it from your DC collectibles and you got it from your Marvel Selects, but you don't get it from your mainstream stuff. This is the mainstream stuff over there. It's not a collector's item in Japan. You know what I mean? So if this is what could be like your everyday everything, you know, because people are just into their fandom and the company actually respects, Bandai respects that because they know they can make a living by catering to these folks. I don't know why that can't happen over here in the US. Look at their boots. They've got riding boots with a little metal cap on the side so that, you know, if you happen to slide when you put your foot down, you know, as you're moving and you want to kind of stabilize yourself, you won't just tear up your boots. That's real. Shit exists in real life. And it looks good in figure form. And furthermore, and more importantly, this is what they had in the film. This is what they looked like in the film. I mean, I can't stress that part enough, because I'm a movie buff and I'm a character designer. So, you know, when I'm seeing these details on film, they made it for real. And then you get a figure and the company making the figure cannot imitate what they saw in the film. That bothers me. It's always harder to make the actual material for someone to wear and it maintains its integrity than it is for you to just make a sculpture and add articulation to it, because you don't have to worry about the differences in material and stretchiness and, you know, ripping and blah blah blah, because this is just all plastic, you know. You just have to make it look like it's different materials. I like the ribbing that they did on the back of the double joint, because the ribbing carries on all around the knee area, except for on the knee pad, which obviously the ribbing would be underneath that, but you can see it on the side. It makes sense. It's a biker suit. This stuff exists and this is how it is. And, you know, they didn't go crazy with like all these extra, you know, things hanging off and blah blah. It just looks functional and it works and it's not overboard. The little I guess these are a little bit bigger. No, they're probably the same size as the ones on their shoulders, I'd say. The little studs and rivet looking things, I think they're studs. Well painted, no slop, you know, and they have a subtle wash. You know, one thing I hate about American figures and American customizers, I see it with their paint jobs, a lot of times they just go nuts with the wash. They just drench the fucking figure in a black wash, and that makes it look real, quote unquote. And it's to the point where it uglies up really good sculpts because these guys just spray them in black wash, and I don't get it, and I don't appreciate it. There are some customizers that paint really well and they do a good job not making the figure look dirty. They just accentuate the certain, you know, the parts, the crevices and the line work. But, you know, I can't stand that. And then I get these and I'm like, man, these guys look like they've been through battles, but they also look like, they don't look like they just rolled around in the dirt. You know what I mean? They look like there's subtle wear and tear. Now we get up close on the face. Look at that little red dot in the center. The third eye, if you will. Details, man. Look how there's no red anywhere on that white. And the compound eyes, baby. Those compound eyes are the shit. It's one of the things that keeps me, you know, collecting Kamen Riders. Especially the ones that look more like grasshoppers. Now on this, when you get up close, it does look kind of funny around the eyes, but that's the way the light is shimmering through that metallic plastic. His paint job is just as good as Nigo's. And then look at the shocker symbol on the knuckles of Nigo's gloves. That is crazy. Those things are tiny. I mean, that's like a G.I. Joe size decal. And it's on every single one of his extra hands. And he has a bunch of extra hands. It's crazy to me. It's like, you know, they could have just done it on one pair and no one would have complained that the other ones were missing. I mean, except for like the most OCD of fans, but this is what we get from Bandai. It's just another example of how they make the best figures. Plain and simple, no bullshit, no bias. I just like action figures and they're giving me what I want. You know, the sculpt is nice. I mean, a couple of those look like the hands are dirty, but I mean, they punched the shit out of everything. So if any area is going to be, you know, dirty on these guys, it's going to be their hands more so than anyone else. So it doesn't bother me. And I also dig how they have the peg in the hand and it's a ball socket and, you know, a ball peg in their hand as opposed to a long peg with a hinge in the hand. I hate that because those pegs always break. Now let's get to the accessories. Now, I mean, as you probably guessed, since all these guys do is karate and ride bikes, they just come with a bunch of hands and two kind of effect ascot ends, which is their scarves or scarves. It's pretty much all you need with these guys, because what else would you do with them? They don't have fancy, you know, like different forms. They don't have a whole bunch of like gimmicky shit going on. These guys actually fought. All their powers and everything is all internal. They're cybernetic on the insides. They were remade from the bottom up as powerful cyborgs. So they just kick and punch the shit out of everything. So all you need is hands so they can assume their various stances, which they can do. And they need punching and chopping hands. And then they need the scarves in case you want to pose them in action poses, or if you put them on a bike, you want that thing blowing in the wind. And that's what they gave you. You gotta love it. I mean, that's exactly what you need. Now, a lot of times when it comes to the SIC line, a lot of people, they're surprised with articulation. They have issues with articulation, or they're hoping that there will be articulation, because these guys are bigger than SH Figuarts, and because of all the added sculpting, because sometimes these designs, I won't even say sometimes, a lot of the time the designs get crazy. As you can see, Ichigo and Nigo are extremely posable. I was really happy about that, because Stronger is posable, you know. His shoulder pads kind of suck because they're huge and they get in the way, but you can take them off or you can swivel them around and stuff. But these guys are more posable than Stronger and Tackle, which is pretty awesome to me because they were the first introduction I got to this line. They're not as posable as the SH Figuarts, but it's only by a little bit because they have a different kind of they have a different aesthetic, you know. Not to say that there aren't any SICs that are, you know, as posable as the SH Figuarts, but these particular, you know, Kamen Riders, they're not as posable as the SH Figuarts. But that doesn't mean that you can't still get a whole bunch of crazy shit, you know, out of them as far as poses go. I was just goofing off with them, and I was able to make them do, you know, kicks. You know, if you sit for a while, you can balance them because their feet are on ball joints. So at the ankle, instead of having a fancy, you know, pivot with a shitty foot joint, you actually have a ball joint, so they get all the range of motion that you need. I never understood why American companies are so afraid of using ball joints. Most of the joints on these figures are ball joints except for their shoulders and elbows and knees. But as you can see, you get a pretty nice range of motion. For some reason, Ichigo's shoulders are just, they're so tight. And it's a weird kind of two-way joint with a piece that connects to the shoulder, and then the arm pegs in underneath the shoulder. So like if you apply too much pressure, it'll just pop off downward. I was like, wow, that's different. And the pegs on the inside of their shoulders and their legs are huge. So you would really have to be trying to break them while posing them. Nigo, for whatever reason, is just real limber. I don't have any issues posing him at all. I don't have to like struggle to get things going. Their shoulder pads are also on a little hinge on top of their shoulder, and it's held in by a little clip. You know, it's like a clip friction joint. And for the most part, I don't have any issues with them, especially not on Nigo. On Ichigo, because his is just really stiff, it just sometimes doesn't cooperate the way I want it to. So I have to take it off, move his arm, and then clip it back in. But you know, it's a mild issue. You know, I don't plan on playing with these guys the way that I would be playing with like my Super RHF Phis, you know. Their shoulders, though, on the inside part of the, you know, once they're connected to the body, it's connected via a ball joint there. So you get a cool shoulder rotation. You know, you can kind of finagle the shoulders so that you can move the arm and move the shoulder pad without it falling, or move the arm and not have the shoulder pad fall off. And I love that. It makes it easier for you to play with the damn toy, or to pose the damn toy, you know? Those are the best figures. You pick them up, use your fingers, and you just flick the part you want in the direction you want, and then they assume the pose that you want. That you can't really ask for anything more, and that's literally all I'm asking for my figures, you know? It's just, I don't know, it's fun. The whole time I was like posing and taking pictures of these guys, I'm just geeking out, because I'm like, man, this is what I've been waiting to do, and how to feel about my figures. Straight up, these guys are fun. If you're a fan of Kamen Rider or tokusatsu in general, or even just superheroes, these are fun figures to play with. They're fun. I mean, you can't play with them as hard just because they look so good. You probably don't want to play with them as hard as you would play with, you know, some American action figures, or some, you know, the I don't want to say, it's not lower quality, but the more child geared figures, like the Super RHF 5s I use as an example, because you can tell that it's made for you to play with it. Apparently there's Kamen Riders outside, because you can hear that. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's like motorcycles flying all over the place out there. But like when you look at certain figures, you can tell by the way they're sculpted and by the type of joints and the type of plastic that they're made out of, that they're meant to be played with. You know, they're meant to take more wear, you know, or more tear, whatever. And these guys don't look like that, and they don't feel like that. They feel substantial. They're not light, and they're about 7.5 inches tall, which puts them kind of close to your Marvel Legends scale. They're taller than your DC UCs. They're taller than most Marvel Legends. They're about to scale with your Marvel Selects, and you're probably your DC or DC collectibles figures. But I like them. You know, posing them is not a problem. If they fall, they're not going to break. Their antennas are actually made out of a nice pliable plastic that it gives. I put super glue on the ends because it was a word of caution that was given to me when I was looking into whether or not I should even try these guys, and they were explaining, you know, those pieces, if you don't glue them in, they will fall out on their own, and it's a pain in the ass to look for them. So I just glued them in. That's one of the things that I'm going to do a lot. You'll see it with the Fies review, because yes, I did get Fies. I don't know how else to say it. These guys are just made of wind. The issues that I have aren't really issues. I wish that all of these figures, SH Figuarts included, were made of the same plastic that like figures like the Super RHF 5s were made out of, or like what American, you know, your DC UCs were made out of. You know, it would be nice, because then you could play with them and then still admire the paint job on these guys and admire the sculpt work on these guys, and then, you know, 30 years from now, pieces won't just degrade for the sake of degrading, you know. But here they are with my other two SICs, and you can see the similarities in the aesthetic. Stronger in tackle, they just took all the goofiness out of them and made them look like bona fide superheroes, and that's all I wanted. You know, I actually dug those characters. I just couldn't really like watch the show and take it seriously. You know, it felt like watching a comedy in which serious things happen. But now seeing these figures, ever since I saw them, in my mind it erased the image from the actual show, and I see them in my head doing all those things. So it's nice to have, you know, this kind of lineage. And these are also Showa era riders, which I would love to have the all 7 of them. I don't see myself somehow paying, you know, 150 plus for, you know, Super 1 or ZX or Z Cross, I'm sorry. But I don't know. Maybe I'll have to substitute. But I'm impressed with them. I like them. I love them. They shit on the majority of the Marvel Legends I have and the majority of the DC UCs that I have. like I said, this is a different league when it comes to detail, paint, and articulation. There's not too much that they do in the show or in the movies that I can't, in the comics for that matter, that I cannot make them do. And I love the fact that that is one of the things that's at the forefront with these Japanese figures, is making them able to do the same things that you've seen them do in whatever media you first came across them, you know, just so that you feel like you're getting a little version of that guy. You know what I'm saying? A little version of the movie, a little version of the comic, a little version of the game, whatever, you know? Overall, this is just, it's a good purchase, especially for the price. I got that for $50 or $51 shipped. If you can find them for a decent price, because that's the big thing, is being patient, searching, and finding them for a decent price. Don't pay $300, don't pay $200, don't pay $100. They don't do anything special that you need to pay that much for. Yes, it's art, you know, so there's that aspect of it, where if you see them for like $80, okay, fine, that makes sense. Think about it as you're paying $40 a figure. But if you can get them for less, which you probably can, since I did it, so do it. You know what I mean? Sit there and search. Take your time. A lot of people, I'm seeing folks that buy import figures, and sometimes it pains me when I see the prices that they pay for these figures. All you have to do is wait. I've been watching some Garo figures for a long time, and the prices are coming down. Not a lot of them, but there are some of them out there, and I'm seeing them, and soon I will own them. The prices are coming down. You just got to be cautious. You got to be careful. You got to be patient, because that's the way to get a good deal when it comes to these guys. But if you can find them for $50, whew, it's beyond a deal. I mean, how often do you find popular what's the word I'm looking for? Popular superheroes or popular figures on the secondary market where you can get two for $50. Usually one is $50, you know, two of them, like the 2-pack with, and I mentioned this in our last Off Our Brains, the 2-pack with Cannonball and Domino. That's like a $200 fucking, $100 and something 2-pack. The one with the Black Widow and the Winter Soldier, that's a $200 item. But it shouldn't be, because nothing about those figures is any different than any other Marvel Legend. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, if anything, there's some limited-ass Marvel Legends figures. Their articulation is just not that great. The paint jobs on those guys aren't that great. Bucky or Winter Soldier looks good, but the Black Widow is just meh, especially if you get the gray version. So don't be gypped and don't be fooled by all the hype that surrounds all this shit, because that's usually what drives the price up and makes things crazy. But as far as these guys go, they're a win, just pure win. I'm so happy to be in this area with them, you know what I'm saying? Because they're dope. They're just pure dopeness. It's just, that's the only way I can put it. So anyway, it's been my review of the SIC movie Realization, Kamen Rider 1 and 2 from Kamen Rider the First. If you can find them, find them. I got mine on Amazon. I think right now these guys are going for about $53 shipped on Amazon. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Peace outside.